Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. Andrea from Andrea Speaks TV, back to bringing news and commentary you can use. Listen y'all, I want to give you another update, yet another update on the migrant crisis. This time I want to take you to Chicago. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. You've heard me speak about him in another video that I did, okay? As a matter of fact, I want you to check out my border crisis playlist, okay? I'll put the link at the end of this video, or the links to the link to the playlist, so you'll be able to see it. But listen, y'all, I want you to know what's going on. And as I report this, okay, it's not to scare you or frighten you, okay? I'm reporting the information. You certainly are entitled to your own opinion, but I want you to think about your own local community, okay? And I want you to ask yourself, could something like this be coming to your community, okay? All right, let's talk about what's going on in Chicago. Let me give you some updates. Listen, y'all, okay? With more than 7 buses, okay, more than 7 buses carrying migrants were expected to arrive in Chicago just today, okay? Mayor Brandon Johnson joined other mayors to emphasize that cities are reaching a breaking point, okay, as far as the border crisis, migrant crisis. Listen to this, y'all, okay? According to Mayor Brandon Johnson, okay, and I quote, without a coordinated effort, this is going to crush local economies because there is a financial responsibility we have all taken on, okay? That's according to Mayor Brandon Johnson out of Chicago. Now listen to this, y'all, okay? Now this is where it gets concerning. And you know, I have, as I speak about the migrant crisis, you know, I say that or not only the migrant crisis is happening currently, but times where our country has offered financial assistance to other countries. You know, I say there is, it seems like a humanitarian duty to help those in times of need. But at the same time, you can't forget your own, okay? I think what we're seeing and witnessing, many of you have shared your experiences and what you're seeing concerning the border crisis and the migrant crisis is very concerning. You have people of all ages, men, women, and children, in what seems like they're just coming in very large numbers, and it's very concerning, okay? It almost makes you wonder, how can something like this happen? Is it happening intentionally? What's being done? What supports are being given, not only to the state of Texas, okay, where Governor Greg Abbott has been very vocal on calling for help, but what about the Border Patrol, the men and women who are actually working for the federal government and patrolling this particular area, okay? Listen to this, y'all. I want to know your thoughts specifically on what I'm about to say, okay? Now, Mayor Brandon Johnson, okay, out of Chicago, told city council members the cost of migrant support is approaching $300 million, y'all, okay? Who's paying for that? He told, Mayor Brandon Johnson out of Chicago, told city council members the cost of migrant support is approaching $300 million this year, y'all. But wait a minute. I want to know your thoughts on this. He, okay, Mayor Brandon Johnson out of Chicago, plans, okay, according to my sources, he plans to shift $95 million in federal C-word, okay, pandemic relief funds to cover some of the costs. Now, let's fast forward. Let's not fast forward. Let's rewind, okay? Going back to the pandemic relief funds, right? We know they were given during a time where, you know, our country was going through, and in some cases still is, recovering from forced lockdown, unplanned closures, sicknesses and things like that. And money was allocated, right, to different people, different organizations, businesses to be used for specific purposes related to all of these things that happened concerning the pandemic, okay? And I know sometimes when they put out legislation, you know, it's, first of all, it may be several pages long, sometimes thousands of pages, right? So what I'm saying is, was there any provision saying that this pandemic relief funds could be used towards the migrant crisis, okay? It was my understanding, okay? And like I said, I didn't sit there and read all of the fine print or whatever, right? If there was fine print. When I think of pandemic relief funds, I'm thinking assistance for the American people. Okay, I could be wrong. You all let me know your thoughts, right? So how is it that he being Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, how can he use pandemic relief funding to help pay for the migrant crisis in Chicago? Wouldn't that be taking away? Now I'm laying the cards out, putting two and two together. Wouldn't that be taking resources away from the people of Chicago? Y'all let me know your thoughts. Okay, I'm just reporting the information. All right, so that is what he plans to do. Now, this is a quote from Brian Hopkins, and it says, at least that prevents us from having to dip into the budget. This is their reasoning, right? Okay, this is the reason why they're going to try to use the $95 million in pandemic relief funds, okay? According to ALD, Brian Hopkins, and I quote, at least that prevents us from having to dip into the budget and cut back on city services this year. Next year is another matter, okay? So how do the people of Chicago feel about this, hearing this, y'all? Okay. Hopkins said if the crisis continues in 2024 without more federal support, cuts in city services are inevitable. Now, you all know I reported on what's happening and what is planning to take place in New York City with their mayor, Eric Adams, how he announced budget cuts to areas such as sanitation, areas such as education, the police force, public library system, and other areas, okay? So what they're saying is, rather than implement cuts right away in Chicago, they're going to attempt to use or shift $95 million in federal pandemic relief funding to cover some of the cost of migrant support. Do you feel that is fair? Do you feel that is the right decision? Do you feel that is the wrong decision? Okay, like I said, you're entitled to your own to your own opinion. It is very concerning. Imagine, okay, throughout the city and communities surrounding Chicago, suburban Chicago, imagine what $95 million could do for those people, okay? Chicagoans, would they be called Chicagoans? The people of Chicago and their communities. Imagine what $95 million could do for those people. Okay, I want to know your thoughts. Okay. Now, we also talked about how it's not only Chicago dealing with or tackling how to handle the migrant crisis. We've talked about New York City, Denver, Los Angeles, other areas such as that. This past Thursday night, more migrants got off a train in downtown Chicago that had come from the suburbs. Okay, it comes as buses tried to avoid regulations put in place by Chicago. Okay, Mayor Brandon Johnson addressed the issue on CNN Friday morning and blasted Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who has been sending buses to sanctuary cities. Okay, we've talked about all of this already. Okay, now here's what Mayor Johnson had to say, and I quote, "He is now sending buses outside of the city of Chicago, in some instances 100 miles away, and they're being dropped off and they're being told they're in the city of Chicago." Now, here's where I had a question, and a lot of people have different emotions, different opinions, okay? I have said that at the end of the day, these people, whether it's men, women, and children, they're still human. And as a matter of fact, I brought up this point months ago, right? Before it got to the point where it is now. And I said, you know, it's something about the fact that they could just put these people on a bus and just send them to wherever they want them to be. That just seems like a level of control that's kind of like, okay, that's questionable. But again, you know, if those people, and there are a lot of concerns in that, okay? These people, these migrants, they also have advocates, people who are advocating for their safety, for their well-being, whether you feel like it's right or wrong or not. Again, I'm just reporting the information. You know, at the end of the day, like I said, these people are human. And there are groups, people, organizations behind them who are advocating for, in all of this, right, their safety, their well-being, as they're transported from one area, okay, whether they agree to or not, them being transported from one area to another. Okay, let me know your thoughts on that. Mayor Johnson also said literally dropped off in the middle of nowhere, and I find that to be inhumane. Okay, that's according to Mayor Brandon Johnson. All right, y'all. More and more suburbs and counties are scrambling to come up with plans to deal with new arrival drop-offs. I've shared with you all how one community, Frankfurt, although they had not anticipated, they had not had any migrants to be dropped off in their community. They were putting plans in place to prevent that from happening unannounced. Now, Thursday night, the village board in Matteson, that's Matteson, passed a new ordinance threatening hefty fines for bus drivers unloading migrants without notice. Now, also in the village of Frankfurt, they were actually putting their community members on alert, saying, hey, if you notice anything, if you see any buses, you can call a certain number and report it. So those people in that community, and it could be others as well, they're actually looking out, okay? Kind of like a neighborhood watch type system, okay? Now, the Matteson village president, Sheila Chalmers Curry, said, and I quote, "The message is don't just drop off individuals in our community. Don't do that to anyone. It's inhumane to do that," okay? So they kind of took on that sentiment. And you also have to think about it. Not only could it be a danger to the migrants, but on the other side of that, you have to think of the potential dangers for the people, the residents in those communities, okay? As I have said, the migrants, they're coming, I would imagine, with only, maybe in many cases with only the clothing that they have on, very little food, water, and I'm saying very little because they're having to travel. How much can you actually carry on you as you're traveling, right? And so these people, they're in survival mode, y'all. They have to have basic needs: food, clothing, shelter, all of those things. So if you just drop them off in the middle of a neighborhood unannounced, who knows what could happen, okay? So you really have to look out for the safety of both sides, okay? Matteson, it says, joins a long list of suburbs passing similar ordinances, and more communities are expected to follow suit, okay? What's going on in your own local community, okay? Do you live in an area that's considered a sanctuary city, or do you live in a metropolitan area where your community, okay, could potentially receive migrants, people being sent, whether it's by airplane, bus, or train, okay? Think about it. And that's why I say it's good to know what's happening in your own local community, okay? All right, y'all. The migrant crisis is showing no signs of letting up. Friday morning, just this morning, more migrants arrived at the city's landing zone in the South Loop, okay? On CNN, the mayors of Chicago, New York City, and Denver said they are at or near a breaking point, okay? Mayor Eric Adams of New York City said, and I quote, "The breaking point looks like having to cancel my police class, stopping some of my trash pickup, and looking at some of my school programs that would have to be canceled." Okay, no one wants that to happen, right? Now, all three mayors keep appealing to the White House and to Congress to fix what they call a solvable issue. All right, let me know your thoughts now. Denver Mayor Mike Johnson said, and I quote, "What we need is everyone that get paroled into this country to work as soon as they enter." Okay, that's what he's saying. They should have federal dollars to help support them in the cities they arrive in. And we should have a coordinated national plan for where those folks arrive. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know your thoughts, okay? The city of McHenry, okay, another city, is planning to hold a special meeting later Friday night. They're also expected to pass their own bus regulations, okay? Meanwhile, McHenry County released a statement Friday saying, and I quote, "McHenry County does not have the authority to direct a municipality to assume any role in housing asylum seekers, but it may facilitate," hold on, y'all, I gotta sneeze. Excuse me. Sorry about that, y'all, okay? I don't do any edits, so I apologize, okay? Let me start over. Meanwhile, McHenry County released a statement Friday saying, and I quote, "McHenry County does not have the authority to direct a municipality to assume any role in housing asylum seekers, but it may facilitate the efficient transportation of asylum seekers to the consolidated resources of the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago." So a question that I have, y'all, and I'll conclude with this. Are cities, okay, cities in America, willing to deplete their resources, okay, their financial resources, community resources that are designated for the people and the communities in which they were elected to serve? Are they willing to risk and deplete their resources in the name of supporting the migrant crisis? Okay, is that what is going on? That they're willing to take from the very communities that they serve and representing the people who put them into office? Are they willing to risk that in the name of supporting the migrant crisis? Okay, I want to know your thoughts on this. This is a growing topic. I'm going to keep you updated. Thank you so much for supporting me and trusting me to bring you news and commentary you can use. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, okay? Again, bringing you some news out of Chicago, Illinois, where Mayor Brandon Johnson is planning to use $95 million in pandemic funds for the migrant crisis, okay? Let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you in the next video.